Welcome everyone to today's webinar, Embracing Regenerative Design, Shaping the Future of the Built Environment. Globally, the human population has increased to 8 billion people, and we are moving towards 10 billion humans on this planet. Our total global extraction of materials from Earth has tripled in the last 50 years and is expected to grow by 60% in the next 25. Everyone understands that many of our Earth's resources are finite. Yet, we are continuously adding more and more consumers, and our resources are running out faster and faster. We all individually underestimate how much damage we collectively have, and we underestimate how much of the natural world has been degraded and destroyed by us as a human species. We understand that economic policy shapes our markets. We understand that government subsidies and taxes shape our markets. We understand that trade policies and tariffs are shaping our markets. Energy resource economics shape our markets. We are very dependent on the decision makers and our policy makers, but we, as designers and planners of the built environment, have an opportunity too. And we must acknowledge this opportunity and see this opportunity that is being provided to us as urban planners, as designers and architects. We must understand as engineers and planners that we all can shape our local environment. We all have the opportunity to shape our future. Today, we have 7 speakers who will all tell their stories. We have environmental scientist Maitri Fischer. We have landscaper and regenerative designer Anton. We have Dr. Yeang, who has written over 13 books and been working on green building for almost 50 years. Thereafter, we will hear from Papa Tiyok, Prasetyoadi, one of the core founders of the Green Building Council Indonesia and director of PDW, famous for building Jakarta's football stadium and a real Indonesian placemaker, a spokesperson for inclusive design and public spaces. Joining him will be Dr. Nirarta Samadhi, one of the Indonesian founding members of Cities for Forests and country director of the World Resource Institute Indonesia. Dr. Nirarta Samadhi will be speaking about his new policy design that's enabling Indonesian mayors to build more green parks and public spaces. In our last topic, the future of urban planning and regenerative building design, we have a positive outlook. We will have Sibarani Sofian, the president of the Indonesian Association of Urban Designers and the master planner of the new Indonesian capital city. And last but not least, we will hear from the Sustainable Building Award winner, the Supreme Award for Structural Engineering Excellence, the visiting professor to Yale and MIT, the unconventional and free-spirited natural building master, who we also like to call Mr. Rock and Roll, Professor Neil Thomas, giving us an outlook into the future and hopefully ending on a positive note. I'll hand over to Maitri Fischer to start this session. And we will be opening right now with the first presentation. Thereafter, we will have a presentation from Anton, Siura, and Yeang. So, Maitri, Fischer, are you ready? The floor is yours.
I'm ready.
Please give us a little bit about understanding a bit of information on understanding the environment.
You can see my screen, all right?
Yes, very good.
Okay, great. Hi, everyone. My name is Maitri. Today, I want to talk a little bit about the idea that regenerative design is really a response to the state of the environment. Um, okay. I'm also co-founder of Ecomimicry, along with Nino. We are environmental engineers. We're a design firm designing sustainable destinations. I grew up in Bali. From the age of 1, I was immersed in Bali's culture. And when I graduated from high school, I went abroad to study geosciences and astrophysics, and eventually a master's in hydrogeology. During this time, I would come back to visit my family in Bali, and we witnessed Bali going through its mass tourism boom. When I left home, Bali was getting 4 million tourists a year. And by the end of my university degree, when I came back to Bali to start the company, we were getting almost 15 million tourists a year. Now we are projected to have 20 million tourists in 2025 or 2026. With mass tourism came mass environmental issues. Many of you have been to Bali, many of you have seen the news. We grew up watching this happen and wondering when this madness would stop. These are examples of some of our photos from the environment. We have the Manta Bay in Nusa Penida. Earlier this year, we had about 50 centimeters of trash wash up onto Kuta Beach, which is becoming a yearly phenomena. The government even calls it seasonal trash. And we have huge floods caused by massive monsoon rainfalls and poor land management. We also have a water crisis, and we're facing all kinds of issues associated with poor management and tourism. Ultimately, sustainability is a balancing act between human and environment. And if we get it right, we get to keep on doing it for a long time. If we get it wrong, well, we suffer. It could be the end of humanity. It wouldn't be the first mass extinction faced by life on Earth. So we can't really talk about sustainability without understanding the place we live in and ultimately the environmental carrying capacity. What can the place we live in, our environment, support? Some things are global, some things are very hyper-local. So what ecosystem services do we need, do we rely on to survive? How many people in one place can this ecosystem environment support, feed? How much of our waste can it process and clean? And ultimately, are we degrading the environment or keeping it as it is or restoring it? We have to ask these questions in our activities. It's like the fish in the fishbowl. A few of them, no problem. You add too many fish in the fishbowl and they all die because they suffocate. The environment can only provide so much oxygen, so much nutrition, so much nutrients, so much mineral resources. So we have the concept of this Earth Overshoot Day, or this concept of biocapacity, where the Earth provides resources and ecosystem services which we need to survive, but ultimately we are consuming more than what the Earth can. And we have the concept of Earth Overshoot Day, which is a simplification of this problem. But in 2020, we got to the point where we would have needed 1.6 Earths to maintain our need for resources and consumerism. Then the fact that we're taking more than can be provided means we're depleting something, depleting what's available at a rate quicker than the environment can replenish or quicker than the environment can neutralize and clean, meaning we're starting to have a net negative impact on the ecosystem, on the planet, on the Earth, on the place that we live. There are more complex ways of looking at it, such as the 9 planetary boundaries developed by the Stockholm Resilience Center, of which out of the 9 important planetary boundaries by 2023, 6 of those had been crossed. Bali, the place I grew up on, is an island. It has clear ecosystem boundaries, smaller than planet Earth. Basically, what's on the island supports the people on the island. Obviously, we have global trade and whatnot, but we're not globally trading in water and ecosystem services, but we can bring in more food, for example. Ultimately, mass tourism has pushed the island beyond a lot of our environmental carrying capacity. We see many indicators of this. We have massive land system change. We have huge normalizations of rivers, rice field conversion, forest conversions, a lot of built up areas creating impermeable zones. This creates floods. We have floods like never before. We have a massive loss of biodiversity. We don't have living rice fields anymore. These are sterile places. They're sprayed with pesticides and fungicides and everything that you can imagine to maximize the productivity of the rice, but it leaves us with a very barren land. We see pollution everywhere. You know, only 48% of our waste goes to landfill. 52% of our waste in Bali makes it into the environment, burnt, rivers, ravines, oceans, dumped, whatever. We are seeing urban heat island. Obviously, this is a global problem. We are facing a water crisis. We have to continuously drill deeper and massive pollution of surface and groundwater and a lot of saltwater intrusion. We have polluted oceans. Globally, we face climate change. And at home, we have a lot of cultural friction between the Balinese culture and the Western globalized cultures that come here. Bali is a case study for the need of regenerative design. No longer is green or sustainable enough. We have degraded the environment so much that we have to go towards restorative and regenerative design. So sustainability can only be achieved if we understand the state of the environment. And we come about it mainly, you know, in some cases, and where you are really determines what you're dealing with, right? In some places, you have bountiful supply of water. In some places, you have no fresh water. In some places, you have access to waste management infrastructure. In some places, you have none. In some places, it's too hot and humid. And in some places, it's very cold. So ultimately, design has to be done through an understanding of our environmental condition. So I've drawn up some examples quickly. I only have 10 minutes for this presentation, so I just wanted to do a little bit. Most of our work is in Southeast Asia, and our tropics are marked by high humidity, intense solar radiation, monsoon rainfall, and dense biodiversity in most places. More importantly, we have unique microclimate fingerprints in all of our sites. And the most important thing in the tropics is how comfortable do we feel? People are always complaining, oh, it's so hot and humid. So actually at our standard, average temperature during the daytime, most people are uncomfortable. It's too hot, it's too humid, and there isn't enough airflow. So a lot of our work is focused on creating spaces where we can live outdoors without air conditioning. How do we create spaces that are comfortable without air conditioning? We have to design for the environment we are in. We have to understand where the wind comes from. We've got our easterlies and our westerlies. These are part of our global winds. They're our prevailing winds. They're also what allow trade to happen. These are called also the trade winds. In our dry season, they blow from the east. In our wet season, they blow from the west. Our storms always come from the west. Well, mostly. We have our island winds, which are onshore and offshore winds. And in this particular project, they blow up and down the valley, which is north-south oriented. These winds are driven by the relationship and pressure created by temperature differences between the sea and the land. At nighttime, the wind blows south. At daytime, the wind blows north. But when we're on site, we measure the complete opposite. During the daytime, the wind is blowing south. And when we are expecting easterlies, we're measuring wind from the west. Why is that? The project is in a valley, and the valley is channeling wind northwards during the daytime up the valley. It's a path of least resistance. So we're expecting the wind to come from the south and go north. But there is a bend in the valley, and this creates turbulence. This turbulence means that we don't receive certain wind direction for this particular project. This turbulence means we can't explain the winds through just our regional and local winds, but it's hyperlocal and it has its own microclimate. So really important to create a building that allows wind from all over to penetrate the courtyard and distribute itself to all its occupants. Here we have an example where we optimized airflow and cross ventilation with computational fluid dynamics models to improve the amount of air that would go into the inner courtyard of the building, along with our easterlies and westerlies. The building is appropriately penetrated from north to south. Another example for a residential project, we have I think 44 residences, and there were a lot of quiet, calm areas. So we reoriented some of the buildings to make the least amount of calm and quiet areas, along with our regional winds, which, because this is large flat areas, gets basically predominantly easterlies and westerlies. Really important to have airflow, because when you add airflow, just 1 meter per second, 1.5 meter per second, you can find yourself in a comfortable environment. As you can see here, the blue shaded area, where before we were not in the blue shaded area and not comfortable, by adding wind speed, ensuring we have either natural ventilations or fans, we can be thermally comfortable at 30 degrees with 80% humidity. This is actually the example from the design of my house.
It's really
I'm running out of
interesting.
time, huh?
Yeah, I think the understanding of the prevailing winds and also the microclimate that each site has is enormous. It has so much potential if we properly take the time to understand our sites and walk our sites and actually study our sites and potentially also put up some measurements and some devices to measure and document the prevailing environment on our site. I feel like this is something that a lot of developers and planners are missing out on and not doing themselves, and architects are maybe also not properly trained in understanding the environment in a way that other people can. And we always think that these kinds of design and developments should be more integrative and should have many more people involved, especially in the very beginning phases of the planning. Maitri, I'm going to pass on to Ken Yeang. Dr. Ken Yeang is here, and he's going to talk about ecological design together with Anton Siura. And I think the two of them are going to share their perspectives on and also their experience. Dr. Ken Yeang is an architect, ecologist, planner, and also author of 13 books. He's been working in green building for almost 50 years. He's certainly an icon in Southeast Asia, is living in Malaysia, and the floor is yours, sir.
Well, thanks very much for having me. I'm going to speak for about 15 minutes. My usual presentation that covers the whole spectrum of my theoretical and design work takes about 40 minutes. So you just, I'll speak about part of what I do.
I understand, and every single one of today's speakers deserves a full hour. We can only touch on so much. And thank you for understanding too.
I'm going to talk about, like the previous gentleman, about designing with nature. And the principle of what I do is I call ecomimicry of ecosystem attributes, with the objective to make our built environment into what I call human-made ecosystems. The existing condition is humanity is like a crowd of people on a boat, and the boat is, if you like, our built environment, and it's leaky, and it's in the turbulent sea, which is the environmental crisis. So this is like existing condition. To rescue ourselves from this predicament, we need information and directives. We need to have the means to get to safety and the equipment. So the solution in our work is information and directives is the science of ecology. The means is through nature-based systems by ecobiomimicry, and equipment is the built environment remade as constructed ecosystems. I just want to go through quickly the science of ecology, not because I want to do it, but because I think a lot of architects are not eco-literate. And so the design starts with looking at nature, and within the planet, there's a thin film called the biosphere. Within the biosphere, there are ecosystems, communities of plants and animals that live together in habitats, and there's a population of different species and organisms.
Dr. Kenyang, the presentation mode, I thought that was being managed by your team, is not being visible. Are you able to share your screen and go
Sure.
onto
Let me
your
go back to the
settings?
beginning. Okay. Cannot see you. Sorry about that.
That's okay. We didn't receive it beforehand, so we weren't able to upload it into our cloud. And
I'm sorry about that. Can you see it now?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. All right. I'll start again. Okay. I'm going to talk about the focus of our work, which is designing with nature.
Wait, it's your team just set it up, and now we are seeing. I'm seeing your profile, but not the presentation again.
Okay.
Sorry,
about
guys.
that. We'll try it again.
Yeah, it's all good. We were trying to get the presentation beforehand.
Okay.
Understand that it's everyone is also very busy with projects and a lot of work, and we appreciate that you're making the time today to be here and also to share more for the students and participants. So now we have you sharing your screen.
Can you see it now?
Designing with nature.
Yep.
Yep. And now it's in presentation mode, and you should be able to use your left and right arrows on your keyboard to go left and right between the slides. So maybe we can jump forward a few slides.
Well, okay. Is that all
Just
right?
try. Yep. Okay, here we go. Perfect. It's working.
No, just click here. Yes, and
Sorry.
you click this.
I'll just put what?
This one is presentation mode. So you control this one.
So what did I do?
You need here this one and this one arrow. You need to use the arrow.
Don't say that again. What?
Use the arrow here.
I'll press the arrow here.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. Then
Okay.
now next. Okay.
Yeah.
Should be working. Yep. Designing with nature. We see
Right,
it.
okay. Well, that's the focus of my work, designing with nature. The approach for designing is not biomimicry, but I call it ecomimicry, which is mimicry based on the science of ecology. Hang on a minute. So ecomimicry is, for me, the emulation of ecosystems' attributes to make our built environment as human-made ecosystems. Our existing condition is something like this. Whole of human society are crowded together in a built environment, which is a boat, and the boat is leaky. And a boat is in the turbulent sea, which is the current environmental crisis, which is in danger of collapse. To rescue ourselves from this current situation, we need information and directives, and we need the means to get out of this leaky boat, and we need equipment. So the answer for me is the information and directives is the science of ecology. The means is a nature-based approach by biomimicry, and the built environment needs to be remade into constructed ecosystems. Most architects are not eco-literate, so I'm going to go through this very quickly to explain the basis for our work. We see the planet as covered by this thin film called the biosphere. And within the biosphere, there are units in nature which is referred as ecosystems. Ecosystems exist in the biome within the biosphere, and within the ecosystems are communities of plants, animals that live in habitats and their population of different species and organisms. The ecosystem consists of both biotic and abiotic constituents acting together to form a whole. Biotic are the biological constituents, abiotic are the physical constituents. And it looks simplistic, but actually within ecosystems, there are very complex processes that take place between the plant and animal communities, the geology, the soil, the soils, and so forth. But this is just another quick summary. But what we need is a universal monitoring system so that we know exactly what society is doing to the ecosystem, so we can take appropriate rectifying action. Now, within the planet, there's human society. Human society is part of nature, but it's the most powerful of all species. So I see this as a separate item in our approach, that we are so powerful. We can change the landscape, we can deforest it, we can change the waterways, we can pollute the air. Now, then we make things. We make more things than any other species in nature. We make built systems, we make artifacts, we make toys, we make, telephones, and 60% it is estimated of the environmental crisis is caused by buildings. And so we are the authors of this suffering, and we should be the authors of its recovery and not the victims. Then there's the hydrological systems, and that water is what life is all about. When astronomers look into the sky, the first thing to look at different planets is whether there are evidence of water. If there's evidence of water, that's evidence that there's potential for organic life. In a summary, this is the model of our design, to see how we can biointegrate these 5 factors together: nature, human society, built systems, infrastructure, energy systems, and hydrology, and into an organic whole. That is the challenge of ecological design, and that is, if you like, what I'm trying to do for a good part of my life.
Mm.
So we look at the first thing, which is nature-based solutions by biomimicry. Now, the approach of biomimicry is to select an biological system. In my case, it is the ecosystem. And the next is to try and identify its attributes to try and create the design systems as human-made ecosystems. So these are some of the attributes of the ecosystem: has a biological structure, has biodiversity, of both biotic and abiotic constituents. This interconnected, and it provides ecosystem services, which are services that contribute to the well-being of the planet without human intervention. The systems are biointegrated, and materials within the ecosystem cycle. I don't want to go through this list, so it's just a list of properties that we need to emulate and replicate. And so that's a part of my work, which is to try and replicate, reproduce it, emulate, we imitate it, and augment it. We can cooperate with nature and intensify it. So these are different strategies that are used for ecological design.
Mm.
So now back to the biological structure. The ecosystem consists of both biotic and abiotic. But let's look at our existing built environment. It is mostly abiotic, it's mostly inorganic. And so if we were to imitate the biological structure of ecosystems, we have to compensate for its lack of abiotic constituents and bring it and balance it together to make an organic whole. So now what are the patterns for doing this? And so I started to look at different ways of putting habitats into the built environment. You can put it all in one location, as you can see this diagram here. It's where, if you in both in terms of plan, in terms of the built form, or you can have a spotty relationship as a series of squares, as in Georgian London, and or you can have a stepping stone relationship where the green areas are not exactly connected, but certain species can move from one patch to another patch, but not all species. So the idea would be to connect all of these together into a spine with as a vertical corridor and with pods sticking out of it. Or the idea would be interconnected vegetation. By being interconnected enables a greater sharing of internal resources and genders a much more stable and biodiverse ecosystem. And so, of course, the ultimate is to cover the entire building, cover built environment with green, with vegetation, biotic constituents. And that is something which is, if you like, the golden chalice of what I'm trying to do in our work. Now, these two are the preferred patterns. And we try and achieve 60 to 100% abiotic constituents, and that within the built form we can have green roofs, vertical greening, green sky courts, green atriums, green areas in the ground, and green links to the hinterland and to the underground. And so with this as a start, we try and link all our buildings, not just horizontally, our built environment, the greening, not just horizontally, but also vertically as well. And so if you like, this is an indication of what we try to do in our design when we create habitats. This is a competition scheme that we did in Singapore. We didn't win it, we got second prize. But the idea was to explore the possibility of, excuse me, of a spiraling relationship. And these were the plans for the building. I have a spiral vegetated ramp that goes on the outside of the built form. And that whenever it hits a certain part, that's a skycot, we open it out. Then a skycot, then when it reaches the ramp reaches the level of the adjoining buildings, I would open it out.
Singapore has about 1,000 inhabitants per square kilometer. The population density is quite high, far higher than what we have in Bali. And
that's a good view. The most we should be concerned about larger cities than smaller cities, because that's the generic problem we have to address.
yes.
I can't change the slide.
It's okay. I think we are coming. I'm going to have to start to cut you short, Dr. Kenyang, because we
yeah,
just for the because we're
okay.
already at Anton Siura's
Yeah, because I couldn't get
presentation.
the first bit working. So would you mind if I have a bit more? Wait a
It's
minute,
okay.
I'm stuck. I'm stuck now, and
Yeah, we're going to have to
all right, okay, all right, you carry on.
cut short the moderated panel. And I think Anton still has a short presentation that he wanted to present us
Okay.
with, which is very interesting too, because he'll be showing how to combine your building design then with landscaping and how the two then start to interact together. I think that's very beautiful and complement each other very well.
Yeah, the proposition of this project is that when the landscape ramp reaches the floor level of the adjoining roof, we bridge across and we green the roof. So this is a way of greening greening the city. Here's an example of a building that we did where we had a continuous vegetation going from one end of the site to the other side. And in the Solaris building, we had a vegetated ramp, but this time for the ramp, we had a walkway as well, so you can service the vegetation. And we had sky cots, which are green. And hang on a minute. Okay, I'll end now.
I think the context is wonderful. And what's also very obvious that you've authored many books and have a set of principles and also a methodology in place that you've developed, which a lot of students use, and which is, I guess, also part of a student's learning to perhaps we can have a brief discussion with Anton if he's ready. Anton, do you want to jump in here on this note?
Yeah. Hi.
Hey,
I didn't get it working just now, you know.
you need to
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone, and hi, Dr. Ken. I think we met in Jakarta previously for a talk in Jakarta Architecture Festival, and project from Dr. Ken is always been my inspiration in pursuing this architecture and landscape architecture career, because he's the pioneers of the biomimicry and ecologically integrated architectural design. So my topic today is going to be more showing example of the regenerative design from landscape architecture perspective, and I will showcase some example of the project in Singapore and Indonesia where we integrate ecological design and regenerative elements into these projects. And as we know that most of the participants probably come from Southeast Asian, and Southeast Asian region is sharing the same problems. We are facing about the deforestation. A lot of land is being demolished for new developments, and this always happening in the big cities. So as a result of this deforestation is we lost a lot of biodiversity, right? A lot of extinction. And when we talk about extinction, it's not just fauna, it's really about the vegetation, a different kind of species from insects, right? It's very important for the natures, and not just about the loss of environment. We don't replace it with natures. And most often in the big cities, rivers are concretized, right? Normalized, and we build a lot of hard grade infrastructures, not just building the road, the water is all turned into the gray concretes. And this keep happening. And when this keep happening, we don't have space to absorb water. We don't have space for the trees, and the water is everywhere during the high rainfall periods. And flood it become a major issue in the big cities, right? And I believe we all contribute to this because most of the people are moving to the city to have a livings. and city become a place that is undesirable place to live because it's getting hot or it's getting too wet. And this also happening in Singapore when we recorded a 37 degrees in Amokyo. And this is the highest temperatures. And I think recently this record is keep broken. So the problem is now just a sustainable design, just a green building is not enough, because we have to care about what happens outside the building as well, right? This is about how can we return to the natures. Without the natures, we have a 19% of runoff that discharge to our rivers, and this causes the problem of whether of too hot or too wet. So we are heading into the unsustainable features if we keep doing the same thing. And this is a reflection for us as our role as an architects, landscape architects, engineers, or planners, or if you're the stakeholders, right? We always facing the same thing, the constant demolition and reconstruction, and this is for the urban growth. So what role can we contribute and how we can balance it? And I will show two example projects from Singapore and also in Indonesia. Singapore has been shifting from city in the garden into a city in the nature in the last decades. And the idea is really about how we can integrate design that promote a lot of greeneries, and not just on the surface, but on the rooftop, and also provide a lot of space for water infiltrations, detention, and storage. And this is a project that I was involved in the past in 2016. It's Bidadari Park, and it's a massive new planning for former cemetery area. It's about 60-hectare site. And what interesting about this area will be designated into a new public housing. But also in the master plan, there's a 10-hectare parks of the existing secondary forest to be preserved. And this located in the center of the new development. So most of the perimeter of the site will be built as a public housing or residential area. So I'm showing the development from 2010 to 2024. As you can see in the left area, this is a former cemetery zone, and now is almost everything is fully developed into public housings. But in this project, I want to showcase example of the parks that focus on regenerative design. So we have a central park with a retention pond. The function is really, other than provide a park space for the new residents, but also become the place for detention and retention pond, because there's a new catchment that need to be captured into this pond. And inspired by the old site, it used to be an archive garden. And if you see in the past, when people build the ponds or lakes, they always use the natural elements. But recently, if you look at in a lot of developing cities, when we put a retention pond, we always build with concrete, such as an example on the tops. So there's a temporary retention pond that is put on the site as part of the detention water for the construction of the new area, and we transform that into a natural pond. And not just creating a natural pond, even the existing trees are kept within the pond as part of the biodiversity attraction efforts. And you can see the different quality of water. When water on the concrete and water on the green area is different. This water is not just clean, store, and slowing down the runoff, but it also provides life for biodiversity. And it becomes a space for people to do the many recreational stuff. The existing roads also are kept with a low intervention. It changed to a pedestrian path and introduced different kind of flora and native plantings of Southeast Asia regions. This is the left side is the existing park. As you can see, sometimes we don't need to do a massive efforts to create a nice park. We just need to do a low intervention, introducing a lot of native plants and change the drain into a natural drain. The result is the space not just shared by people, but also become the place for the birds to come and And the birds come here, so we provide the water for the birds, right? Such that designing a marshland that allow the birds to come to have a shower and also become part of the ecosystem for the parks. Not just providing space for the birds, we also design eco bridge that link the two different parks. So this bridge, 15-meter length, only 2 meters is designated for the pedestrian, and the rest is planted with dense vegetation. This is to allow the smooth migration between the two existing parks. And the design also respect the old gardens. So in the 50s, there's a mounds, and we recreated that mounds, and this mound become part of the identity of the parks. And when my mothers and my son come to the park, we try to create these new memories, developing from the past memory. So this is just a comparison. If we can design a regenerative park, can we design a regenerative buildings? An example is a mixed development, mixed-use building, Kampung Emeraldi. I think a lot of people know about these projects. This project was designed by Woha, and Henning Larsen was the landscape architects. And I just want to give a reflection what happens to this building 8 years after it completes. So it changed from a very small plots of 9,000 square meter into from a passive lawn into a very biodiverse environments. Almost 600 trees are planted in this size. So it means 1 tree every 15 square meters. And not just planted trees, we design the system that clean the water, slow down the runoff, and store it and reuse for maintenance and irrigation of all the landscape. So during the rain, you can see the water trickling down, cleaned by different vegetative filter system, and we reuse it to irrigate all these plants. Within 3 years, almost all the trees cover the surface of the buildings. And you can see the transformation. All these plants, all these trees are built on the concrete slabs. So we just need a good soil to allow for the nature to thrive. And the plants that plants here are the biodiversity attracting plants, fruit trees. They create a space for many animals as well. You can see the transformation in just 10 years, how these trees growing from 4 meter to 15-meter hikes and become
Amazing.
a space for people and animals using a regenerative design approach. So now we move to Indonesia. That effort is not just finished in Singapore. I'm trying with my team to do a lot of regenerative efforts in Indonesia. For the last 6 years, we have worked over 50 projects, and every project we always approach with the same methods: regenerative, water adaptive design, and this can be applied to many different scales, from public parks, streetscape, building, residential, to resorts. An example is the Tebet Eco Park in Jakarta, which is an old park that has been there for the last 50 years, but it has a lot of problem of garbage dumping site, inadequate hydraulic capacities, and spreaded by the roads, but they have a lot of beautiful trees. And when I look at the transformation again, in 4 years, most of the existing trees are still intact. We just do a very low impact intervention to design the park to be more resilient. So we transform this existing problem with a nature-based solutions, changing the dry land, the flooded land, into a more blue-green open space. So we allow a lot of space to capture the water, and will allow people to enjoy the park as well. So the transformation is really about changing the mindset that the great infrastructures can be changed with the blue-green infrastructures. We integrate a lot of plants along the riparian, and we break down the existing concrete canal, and we reuse back that as part of the material of the bioengineering. So there's a gabbion walls, riprap, or become the hardcore of the paving. The result is really changing about the mindset. The drain is separating the two space, become uniting the space. A lot of people want to be closer to the water, and the water have a more capacity to discharge the water into the ground infiltration and also slowing down the speed.
Mm.
So this part is an example of how we can absorb carbon, reduce runoff, and a lot more for groundwater infiltration. The result is attract a lot of fauna back to the cities. And we can see more birds, squirrels, butterfly, dragonfly around the parks. And also designing a space for people so that people can space this park as a whole. And we change the mindset that the positive demolition and regeneration, water should not be a burden. It can be a resource to be cherished and celebrated. And what interesting is after the completion of parks, a lot of private sectors take the similar initiative. And when we first showed by the developer Sinarmas about the potential project of this, they just built this canal about 3 kilometers, and they said, "Can this be like the bird eco parks?" And we just smile because for us this is an opportunities, right? So this is a half completed canals in Tangerang BSD area. Is being constructed with a cement and concretes. And our approach is really about break down that concretes, renaturalize partially, and integrate the ecological design, improve the connectivities, and that become a park that is more resilient for the futures. And it will also become the core of the new planning area, become a continuous parks that allow water for absorption, flood mitigation, and provide a lot of recreations.
Mm-hmm. But
And-
Anton, we're already getting close to the 15-minute mark.
Yeah.
We're going to have to move on to the next topic soon. If you want to just come to an end.
Yeah. So this is an example of how we can approach with this low-tech intervention, changing the rubble wall into the natural wall. And this is the result. I think it's still ongoing, the construction almost completed. But the fun part is we return the nature into this area using the natural stone vegetation. And as you can see the difference, a place that is avoided is now bring people closer to the water. They're sitting around the rivers, put their feet on the waters, and a lot of fishes also coming. And yet, example of the building also. The building of that is normally, this is in Epiwalk, that is normally cladded with the wall, now is open up and changed into absorbing carbon surface. So, and we create a different kind of experience. So a building that used to be closed, now is open and cladded with a lot of vertical greeneries that help to cooling the air. You can see the difference. A building that need to provide a lot of aircon, when we open up, it creates more value. People want to sit outdoor and surrounded by the greeneries. And you can see the difference to the urban setting as well. You prefer to have this kind of setting that's more welcoming, a lot of plants and a lot of birds, butterflies also come to the surface of the buildings. And it's shown that the regenerative effort is not just end in the open public space, but it can also apply to the existing buildings. I just come to the last projects in Bintan, how we can integrate regenerative design into a luxury projects like a 5-star resorts in coastal setting. The project is, this is our vision for the landscape, to have a lot of native planting, to have a lot of waters as part of the collection storage. And this existing condition, which have a lot of bauxite soils. And we use a lot of native plants taken along around the projects. And within 1 year, we can transform this construction site into a very green and resilient open blue-green space. So the
Bintan had
lagoon
a lot of deforestation. Huh? There was a lot of logging on Bintang Island there.
Yeah. So this effort to put a more native plants of Bintans into the projects, and also there's a part of reusing water for the planting ecosystem. And these are our visions to create lagoons that become part of the central collection. And this is the transformation. And you can see that this water is not just become part of the landscape features, but it has function to hold the water before we discharge to the sea. We clean the water with the plants. And these plants also attract a lot of biodiversity. We can see a lot of animals, monitor lizard, birds, and fishes all come naturally to this resort. So it's become a very unique resort that during the rain, all this water are collected in the lagoon, and it has a capacity to retain and detain the water. And we reuse this water as part of the maintenance. So we use whatever rainwater that come into the resorts are collected and reused for maintenance. So reduce a lot of use of waters. And our continuous offer is really about promoting the regenerative design. And there are many opportunity if you look at around all our projects are the opportunity for the regenerative design. Thanks, Tino.
Yeah, one of the main things we see is groundwater extraction. So developers have deep wells and are taking lots of water out of the ground. And what you're showing here is groundwater recharge as well as rainwater harvesting, making use of the water, using less groundwater, correct? It's really nice. It's too bad that we couldn't have a moderated discussion between you and Dr. Ken Yeang. It would have been nice, but we're a little bit short on time, and we're going to move forward to the third topic, where we are talking about building guidelines and government support. But also we'll be hearing from Dr. Nirarta Samadhi, who also is going to share with us how he's helping to design a new policy for the Indonesian government, and how that policy is going to enable mayors and bupatis, decision makers, to make parks, to make more public spaces, to bring forests back into our environment, and to use a policy tool to do that. So this is a very interesting approach from who we call also Pak Koni from World Resource Institute Indonesia. Yeah, the floor is yours, sir. We're able to see your screen. I believe you need to click on the bottom right of your PowerPoint presentation to make it full screen, and then unmute your microphone on the bottom left side.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yes.
Thanks. I'm trying to be quick so that we will have the luxury of time for discussion, because again, I miss Anton, Siura, and Dr. Yeang discussion. So, hi everyone. My name is Nirarta Samadhi, Connie for short. Thanks for having me. To me, it's a learning session, listening to other distinguished speakers. So, let me start. Hang on.
You need to full screen your presentation.
Oh, I haven't. Okay,
I think Salai, there we go. Perfect.
All right. So
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this is just a short introduction on WRI Indonesia as an organization. So we are part of the global networks of research institution. So, but I'd like you to pay attention to the left, the right hand side of my presentation. This is our approach, the theory of change, if you like, count it, change it, and scale it. I'll come back with this theory of change, if you like, in my presentation, so that you see how we can, move from research into a policy and then the implementation of the policy. So count it being doing the research and change it. In this case, in my presentation, is turning that research into a regulation, and then that regulation then scaling up into others initiative and other places. So that is what we mean by that. This is just to show you what is Cities for Forests is all about. So this is a project. It's a global initiative. So it's not just in Indonesia. And it's basically aimed to encourage organic movement in cities to realize the importance of trees and forests. So I think I'm glad that I came after Anton, because what Anton has showed is actually the practice of what I'm trying to convey here theoretically. So thank you for arranging that. So we are having 69 cities participating in the Cities for Forest project, having more than 200 million people within those cities spread across 6 continents. But of course, each of the cities would have different approach to achieve the same goal. So in Jakarta, we are happen to be able to issue 2 regulations facilitated by this project. One is on tree management, and the other one is on provision of city parks. I'll let you go through the journey of this 2 regulations. The context, you can see here. Maitri already introduced some. Dr. Yeang also touched upon those challenges, and also Anton. So everyone familiar with what happened to the cities, I mean, in terms of the environmental challenges. And I think everyone also understand even instinctively that the green open space is the solution. But what we are doing in the Cities for Forests actually go a bit deeper than that. So we do research, we do the tree inventory, do the tree mapping and whatnot, and even come up with tree inventory methodology that is now being used by city park agencies at the cities level nationally. Now, let me take you to the process of turning research into regulation, which then are being used to guide the development of cities. In this case, is Jakarta. So what we are doing the first is especially analyze the distribution of green open space, because we want to see the balance between open space and the built-up area. And of course, at the same time, we need to do the literature review on best practices of green open space regulations elsewhere. So again, as I said, we developed a tree inventory methodology. And also, actually, we able to do some sort of modeling, nature-based solution modeling. In this regard, is in concern with the urban flood and also urban heat island. Just to show that green open space trees are actually a solution for us for some of the cities' problems. Then we move to the regulation formulation. So based on the research, we come up with what we call academic paper. This is something that is mandated in the regulatory process in Indonesia. So the academic paper is being used as the reference to draft the governor's regulation at the time. Then we do some consultation, because this is a governor's regulation. It doesn't require to do a consultation with the public, but we did a very limited consultation with the public. Most of the consultation has been done internally within the government. So the regulations basically emphasizing three things: more equal distribution of green spaces, and also effective tree planting, and the participatory a process of a park development. So I see that that the design that being shared mostly coming from the desk of the architect, but this regulation specifically mentioned about the needs to do the collaboratory and participatory process, because then it builds some sort of attachment, social attachment to that to the end product. So it is being issued by year 2021. After that, between 2022 2024, there are 60 parks being built, and close to 156,000 trees being planted, all in reference to those two regulations. And this is just briefly illustrating the research that we are doing. There's a link down there that you can access, where you can see the inventories, tree inventory, a training module for the local government.
Are you working with government officials, servants, or are you also working with volunteers in this context of the data collection?
Yep. Well, what we are doing is working with the government institution. So we do the training, and because each of the cities government actually have enough people to do this, right? But this need to be combined with the application of remote sensing technology. So it's also, you can find it there within the manual on how to do that. But the capacity of the local government sometimes is not up to that point, so that hiring consultant to do the surveys is also something that is being put in place. Yeah. This is just to show the spatial analysis on the distribution of green open space in Jakarta. You can see that there is not just a public space, but also the private green open space. We are only able to manage in-depth analysis on the public space, but not so much on the private green open space. Again, accessibility to private property is something that is a bit of a challenge for us. While we are doing the regulation formulation, some limited consultation, public consultation also being done. But the goal is actually more on the education side of things, raising public awareness of the importance of green open space. So we need to be able to get the people. Of course, this is by instincts is a good thing to do. But if people, if the public knows better on what is the role of the open space and trees, then it's going to be easier for the government to do that a bit. This is the two regulations that I mentioned. One is on the tree management and the protection, and the second is on park provision and its utilization. So I think the eco parks also built during this period. Just to show you, the lighter green is where the new parks are being built, and we try to prioritize places where they don't have parks yet, so that the distribution is a bit better. So what we learned, at least we learned three things, and I think this is not unique to this case, and I think every works turning research to create a science-based policy is almost similar elsewhere. So three things. Yeah, first is, of course, we need to be able to align our supports with the government priorities and needs at that time, right? So at that time, maybe some of you would recall there's a class action on air quality in Jakarta,
which was also due to NAFAS and the air monitoring work that they were doing.
Yep. And also there's a big buzz around removals of mature trees within Monas Square and also some main roads in Jakarta. So that creates attention by the government to this issue. So we align this with the newly emerged priorities at that time. Then we have to have a good technical support, which is fit for purpose. Not exactly high level tech, but it has to be fit for purpose. Yeah. And need to be able to generate vital data for this initiative. The third one is, of course, we need to leverage the government's commitment and leadership. That is the only way it will ensure success in the implementation stage. So basically, these are I listed down things that we are doing, and hopefully my brief presentation can give you
a great overview
on the process from research into policy. Over to you.
Absolutely. I think also interesting to see that it's in combination with NAFAS and the other air monitoring tools that have been becoming more and more present in our lives, where people trust the air monitoring devices and the data that they're providing, and they trust that there is a problem and that there's a pollution. And then there's a reaction. There's a public reaction. The government in this case also got sued. There were lawsuits and public outrage, and I think it's a wonderful signal to see that the public is reacting to an environmental issue and topic and actually cares about it. And then there's a policy that follows, and more greening and more regenerative landscapes being developed within a city context. I think other mayors should follow. Pak Koni, I hope that this policy rolls over to Bali and Surabaya and other places in Java. I think Java has something like 82 or 84 kabupatens. So each kabupaten probably has its own implementation of this. But would be wonderful to see this roll out.
Yeah, actually after Jakarta, then came Semarang, Jayapura, Manokwari, also then Pasar, Pekanbaru, Medan, and Balikpapan joining the project. So this is the scale-up stage that I mentioned earlier on. And for Pekanbaru, later on, they also issued the same regulation, mimicking what Jakarta has have in place.
Right. Yeah. Next, our next speaker, Prasetyoadi Tiyok, is the managing director of PDW. He's a core founder of Green Building Council Indonesia. Also one of the creators and builders of the Jakarta Stadium. I think one of your more famous projects back in the day. Tiyok, and Tiyok is also a placemaker, but also a shaper of inclusive space, and looking to design in ways that are for everyone. But Tiyok, I'll hand over to you.
Thank you, Pak Nino. Please allow me to share my screen. Hopefully it's come out well now. I'm going to talk about what I do. I have the pleasure and privilege to work with Pak Anton. We actually currently doing a project together, and also Pak Yeang, Dr. Yeang always inspired me. We spoke at several events years ago, and also good to meet you. And I think I'll follow up with what Pak Koni has already delivered. That now we are closer to the temperature increase because of the climate change. It's now from 2030, now it's put forward to 27. We have to do a lot, of course, regeneration and also adaptation, because we can not rely on only sustainability anymore, but we need to put up our effort in combating climate change through the built environment, what we do for a living, what we have in profession, and try to influence the larger in our profession. And this is the challenge. As you can see that following Pak Koni presentation, that this is Jakarta taken from the north to the south, that just a little bit of trees line, and we are addicted to cars, mobility with motorized vehicle, and talking about the air quality, we have this is in Ancol, the recreation park, and when you turn your head to the east, then there you go, there's your coal power plant in your city. Working with Green Building Council as a Green Building Council Indonesia, the message is clear that we put people and nature first for resilience to climate change. So part of adaptation, we not just surviving, we have to thrive. That's a very strong spirit that we have to carry over for everybody. And if you look into Jakarta is one of many cities in Indonesia, including like Bali that already mentioned, the pressure from mass tourism. And Jakarta is because of incoming population, lack of green space already mentioned. We have to find a creative solution for that. Housing shortage in terms of housing ownership, but of course there's plenty other housing options, and insufficient public transport that it's been the government has already put a lot of money in infrastructure for MRT, LRT, and etc. And what we have to do to restore Jakarta, we have the goal of 2045, 100 years of Indonesia that we propose, that we have to restore a lot of things in Jakarta, not only the environment, of course, the forefront of the restoration, but also society, how people like make a robust society, and the economy with access opportunity to people through this proposal. So we are working with association, NGO to give input to government, and also by example from our project for urban resilience. First, it's not Jakarta, it's Semarang. If you are familiar with Semarang, this is the old town, heritage center of the city. At the edge of Chinatown, there's a great mosque, the old great mosque there, and the heritage market by Thomas Karsten that being not exactly climate change, but it's burned down, and it's already almost 100 years building. But over the years, in 20, 30 years since its beginning, there's alun-alun or open space that being occupied by another pressure from the economy. So the fire actually give us opportunity to reshape the urban fabric, if you like, that we put the market under, and also several a building, put the old market back, restore it, and give back the alun-alun. So it's part of regeneration of the city, give back a green space. Underneath the green space, there's parking, there's more shops, and the rest of the shop are accommodated in a new building. Thus, put again the connectivity by way of pedestrian movement to the mosque, Masjid Agung, to the Chinatown, and to the commercial area surrounding. This is the inside of the market that's been restored. Give it back its life and return the activity for trades for the people. And the top is another open space, alun-alun, different level from the original. If you can see, we provide skylight that lighten up the space in the semi-basement. But what is more important is giving back space to the people to do activities after the afternoon prayer. They can hang out here. they can like re-own the big part of the city. The second one that we do through our project is Grand Rubina. It's a normal office space. It's commercial. It has to follow the feasibility studies. What we do is we look into a normal sort of building, square, efficient floor plate. But what we are thinking is from the brief is 20 stories. So 20 stories. Why don't we put access as well as sun shading on the envelope of the building, that reducing the amount of heat that coming in, but still feasible. It's fixed apa namanya, fixed vertical fin, as well as horizontal, and the horizontal part will be able to be used for building maintenance. So we don't need BMU because people can go up to 10th floor and walking down, go up from the first floor going up for maintenance of the facade. It's still open, and it immediately saves 20%, 28% of energy use for air conditioning, while still maintaining the light coming in to also to increase the daylight. This is the part of the facade that you can see. The building itself looks like a dynamic, different angle, different view, different shades. Although we have a monochrome color, and also the space under that we are putting back nature in the hard commercial area. We apply crime prevention to environmental design, so people can look and be seen, see and be seen. So it creates a also secure environment. We're not building fence, high 2 meters fence, but we are using landscaping as our fence, a horizontal fence. A normal office building, you will see a lot of cars parking in front, drop off. But in this building, we prioritize. So the left hand side is the main road of the building. So it's the face of the building. We're not putting any cars. The cars is hidden underneath this in this mound. So we are using the level difference to prioritize people walking and accessible as well. Additional trees to the street complement with the surrounding of the building. Then further, we want to take on the green taxonomy from OJK. This is what we are doing as a Green Building Council. We try to push green financing to finance more projects like what Anton do at the moment, what we do, and by this we will be able to encourage the developer, financial sectors alike, people that are not in the construction industry, to look into our effort to restore our cities.
So just for clarity here, OJK is the Indonesian Stock Exchange. Is that correct?
It's a financial authority for financial services. Otoritas
Financial.
Jasa Keuangan.
Okay.
Yeah.
They regulate companies that are listed on the stock exchange, like that?
Yes.
Publicly listed companies. And
yes.
so this is saying that there's a categorization to support green finance, and construction and buildings is covered in this sector. So
Yes,
there's
there
a
are-
rate. So
yeah, there are
there's
six
a rating
sectors.
system.
Yeah.
Mhm. Okay.
Yeah, they're using the existing rating system. Greenship is one of it. There are many rating systems that they are recognized, but it will help the developers, civil society, private sectors, even like the building tenant to apply for this. It's part of their ESG to achieve the Indonesia's net zero 2060 agenda. So what we are now in the near future will push this agenda to our society, to our professionals, building and construction industry and built environment.
So I think the majority of
So
Indonesians
this is
that are
just my take.
Yep, sorry.
Sorry.
No, so
Yeah,
I
this is
just
just my
wanted to
take.
dig a little deeper.
Yeah. Sorry. Should I get back to or we can discuss this later with Pak Koni? But what we are trying to push to inspire to younger and fellow architects is and urban designer, urban planner. We have to have imagination because it's our power, visioning, and what we can do to achieve that. That's my last slide. Thank you, Nino.
Can you go back to that? That's interesting. A lot of times when we bring our vision to the developers and government, there's a lot of pushback and a lot of fear of risk, also of costs.
Yes.
And investors, developers themselves have a lot of exposure to risk and carry a lot of the risk if the project will succeed in the future. Do you see any bank tools, loans, cheaper loans? Can banks reduce the risk that these investors and developers have? Do you think that there's an opportunity in Indonesia to create some form of bank loan that is cheaper if you build green, if you build regenerative? Because the majority of Indonesians build using a bank loan. They will give the building as collateral to the bank and they will have to pay interest on that loan. So what if the interest rate was lower by, let's say, 2%, if you build regenerative and green, or at 1%? Do you think that's feasible and something that we could be seeing in the future?
Yes, because now the financial industry, especially the global finance industries, put money and put pressure on the global companies. In the case of Indonesia, for listed companies, that they have to do the ESG reporting, whether they are building the developer as their main business or they are building their office as a facilities or their infrastructure, or they are renting, they are a tenant in a building. Any kind of company business that relates to building and construction, they will have to adhere to this. Whether they're housing for the staff, they're individuals, they're trying to get as minimum as possible impact on the environment. What is available is actually now the bank is looking to channel the green financing scheme that already put up by OJK. Instead of we are pushing the bank now, it's the time the financial sector get informed by us that this green project, this green initiative, this regenerative initiative has already been taken, has been already implemented. Now, what we are trying to do as a green building is to provide them with our rating system to value, to to score as a scorecard for the financing, for their financing, so they can channel their financing with lower rates.
That's great to hear. I hope the scorecard is.
Can I say something, Nino? I think it's very important. As long as we continue this idea that it's all about finance, we're not going to get anywhere. If it's entirely, but the problem with the industry is that it's driven by money, finance. And as long as that is our only goal, and this is what I'm hearing all the time, but I thought it's worth, sorry to interrupt you, Tiyok, but we've got to see different goals. And they are not only financial goals. It's very important that so long as we're always talking about how we can make sustainable design has to be made profitable in some way. But it is not purely a question of bringing down the cost of financing.
No, but we don't have any access to financing tools in Indonesia, for one. I think and we need some access to better financing tools to help developers reduce their risk. to make it easier for them to make braver, bolder design decisions, right? To embrace braver, regenerative, sustainable design, for it to be less of a struggle to have these discussions. I think it's still highly important at the end of the day, and yeah, I think we have another speaker coming up, Sibarani Sofian, who's working on the design and planning of the new capital city, which is a highly controversial project. And he's going to be allowed to share his side of the story. After speaking to him several times, it's quite impressive what they're working on. Pak Tiyok, Bapak Koni, it was wonderful to hear from both of you. I think on one side we had a market-based, on the other side we had more of a policy-based. Both of you are presenting lots of interesting solutions in an Indonesian context. Continues to make me hopeful, especially the parks. Pak Koni, I love seeing the parks. I'm so excited about that. I hope there's a big one being built next to my house soon.
Yeah.
And Pak Sibarani Sofian. So we have the next speaker, founder of Urban Plus, the president of the Indonesian Association of Urban Designers, and the master planner of the new Indonesian capital city, IKN. The stage is yours, sir.
Okay, thank you, Sean. Can you hear me well?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you,
Loud and
everybody.
clear.
Glad to be part of this very exciting webinar. Hi to my fellow speakers, Tiyok, and also Mr. Ken Yeang. Nice to meet you again here. So I'm gonna probably quickly scroll through because there's quite a lot of material to share, and I think we are shifting towards more design focus, I guess. And bear in mind also, as already mentioned by Sean, it is quite controversial project, but it's still ongoing right now. And I think I want to share with you what will be the regenerative ideas behind the planning of the capital city, so people may probably have a better understanding about what we're trying to do, not necessarily just building something physically, but we also try to regenerate and restore and renew and revitalize the ecological situation in the capital city. That what we already have in the capital city right now is far from it. So we have to go really all out on that. And what we seek to do is to become an exemplary model for regenerative design initiative for future new towns. And I put the caveat in here is all mostly new town because we don't really deal with a lot of existing situation other than the nature itself. And why we want to move to the capital city in the middle of Indonesia is to politically, also geopolitically, to centralize Indonesia beyond the Java-centric approaches that right now most of the economy and also the attention and urbanization is happening only in one island of Java. And this is a government top-down projects, yeah. So it's very much driven by the President Joko Widodo idea to bring up the national identity, to also ensure sustainability, and also to bring up to the next level of smart modern city. And it's not only just a physical movement, but it's also a transformation of the society and civilization. And within that, also the aspiration to be very green and very sustainable. And I think maybe to me, it's one of the most ambitious project that coming from the performance of the sustainability, such as the green area is much more bigger than others. City, 100% alternative energy as a target, a 10-minute city, net zero emission, 80% public transport are the couple of the key KPIs that is actually already mandated by law. And we won the competition in 2019 with the title of Negara Rimba Nusa, which is the means of that is a city in the forest archipelago. As we already realized that we are building in Borneo, that is already known as the lung of the world, the green heart of the country, and we want to situate our city amongst the forests. But and just to give you an idea of the scale of this of the project itself, It is a regional planning. It's not really necessarily just a building or a complex, but it's actually very huge. It's 220,000 hectares of land, and it is almost become probably 5 times of Singapore, and it's as big as our regional metropolitan Jabodetabek. And what we are focusing on in this presentation is only the one of the town that is actually part of the 9 towns, in total of 1.8 million people in total. But the first one that we're going to build and we actually show is number 1, which is the government centers. And that government center is only about 6,600 hectares, which is the size of the Bumi Serpong Damai. And just to give you an idea of the performative situation that is required, and it is quite ambitious, and I don't think there's a city that is already hitting this target. And this is also, again, as part of the being a model city, that we want to create the most ideal situation where we hit most of the sustainable target like this one. And I divide my presentation into 2, how to interpret the vision, the goals, and the KPIs in the technical term, and how that model of the city looks like. And the second one, I'm going to talk a bit more about the sustainable urban form, and it's more on the context of trying to be a forest city, or to the extent of biophilia or biomimicry. So to begin with, we are not starting with the virgin forest. It is already a disturbed forest. It is already being changed a lot by the previous government back in 1998. It was already given as a concession for a paper pulp plantation. So we are dealing with already a very disturbed landscape, and it is also undulating. And we think that the approaches that we have in here is to really try to be inspired by the nature and have a very sensitive approach to the environment. We also try to identify painfully all the nerve system, the greenery system, that almost like a nerve system of the land, to take us free from the sea level rise and also flood, and also to secure that the greenery is also functioning as what we expected to be more natural based system. Even the road system is much more organic, more natural. We have little opportunity to create gridded orthogonal city, but then we try to interconnect everything and following the contour. And we also have to we try also to identify the big ecological corridor to make sure that animal ecology and water can pass through. And we try to identify within that riparian area the intertwining between the urban system and also the nature system to be really closely knit, and also network, to create that 70% of the green area is actually in form of this natural state. We are not trying to move things around. We try to work with whatever it is already on the ground. And this is the subject of the reforestation and regeneration, because we understand that the condition is actually already very disturbed. And from the urban system point of view, we want to make sure that the diversity of the land uses is also there, to make sure that we are vibrant enough. We are much more combined between different uses, so it minimizes the travel. And we also start from the travel pattern first, and trying to put in all the backbone of the transportation. And we try to build the people walkable area around this train, around the mass transit, and try to build also the density around it, to make sure that we have an efficient and also polycentric system that allow people to move around within the 10-minute radius. And bear in mind also, it is not flat, so that 10-minute become even much smaller than we normally do. So the next section is how we try to also see not only from the building side or from the urban form side, but we also see at the negative of it, which is the ecological and the landscape perspective, and how to bring back the nature and wilderness in the city. So we have this situation where the one on the top is where it's actually used to be, and it's already been destroyed, and it's already been changed into a monoculture, and it's already happened really fast. Yeah, it's 220,000 hectares of just all primary forests being wiped out. So we really need to bring this one back. We really need to bring them to the design framework and we try to restore it. We try to create a living system and distribute this open space across the urban fabric, and reintroducing also the native vegetation and ecological condition back into the area, while also introducing into the urban context. So we try to develop the idea of the archipelago is also formed by this way. But so all the urban area is actually an islands of urbanity that is surrounded by green corridor, blue corridor, and we have also the islands of the archipelago of the greenery around. So that form this type of shape and the form. But then in the more detailed level, all this riparian is actually the key of our greenery initiative that we try to distribute and we layer across the urban fabric. And we try to also put all the the specification and also the performance that we want to get from there, be it from the water performance, from the ecological performance, also from the social performance. We want to make sure that it's not only just a passive space, it's also become part of the social space. And we also have used that corridor as also the narrative for the integration between the man and the nature. And to also have a long journey of programs, 2 phases of the programs, the first 10 years, what we want to do to replant those, and also to reintroduce the green layer. And of course, it takes time. It takes the first 1 year just to have a mix of the old species. This eucalyptus species is very brittle and very fragile. So every 3 to 4 to 5 years, it will fall down by itself. So we really need to introduce the new layer, but then it needs to also be coexist. It doesn't happen by wiping it out and replacing it with completely new. So we layer it in the next 2 to 5 years and 6 to 10 years. So start to have some succession of the new 3 layers, and then we start to also look at the 25 years program, and all the way to the 50 years program to become the bringing back all the forests again to the natural states. So of course, this rendering is the nicer sort of like version of it. This may happen in 10, 20, even more, probably 30, 40 years to take shape. So in the more detail, what would be the solution that we try to do in the more smaller scale or meso scale or micro scale of the building? We try to bring the idea of the biomimicry and also the biophilia approach. We try to mimic emulate the nature and try to see how much the forest system can be implemented into our urban system, working with all the contour, with all the different different terrain, and interconnecting building, just like the branches, harvesting energy from the top using the solar panel, try to bring in a lot of porosity at the ground and also at the middle level, try to also bring a lot of diversity at the very base of the ground to make sure people also can enjoy the space and interaction with the nature. And this is nothing actually new in our vernacular architecture, where we also bring in the minimum sort of like light touch approaches to the land to follow the contour and also to allow the nature to coexist with the building. In our old Banjar homes, or even in many places in Indonesia, we have rumah panggung, a building that start on the stilts. And then we have also when we start to bring this philosophy into the build system, also inspired by the nature system of Indonesia, try to be adaptive to the contour. We don't work on one platform, but we work on multiple layer and multiple accesses. And we also try to connect between those buildings that we know that they are separated by contours at the ground level. So we even level out all the base of the pedestrian system to be more direct and connected. And we try to also bring a lot of program at the base to create a lot of interaction so people can walk. And we bring in the corridor of the green to create that kind of microclimate, ecological corridor, and also a lot of a possibility of integration with the building. And the building itself has a lot of greenery. And then we also bring the public transport to the blocks and the buildings to make sure that people can use the public transport in a more efficient way. And of course, the more technological and advanced system also be introduced to be there to make sure that we are ahead. I mean, we stay relevant with the recent technology using IoT and also smart system. So some of that section works out in our coordinating ministry blocks that is already being built now. It's almost completed. So one of the big transition is we open up the ground level and we don't put any fence on the ministry building, which is something that is not really happening a lot in Indonesia, especially in government building. Tend to be fence, tend to be a lot of setbacks, and the services happening on the upper floor. So in this system, we try to open up the ground floor to create more interaction. We also open up the wind corridor to make sure that it's also allow some wind to penetrate. Also, the green building is also try to hit the high target. And we do a lot of cantilever to create that kind of shade and to protect the sun and also the heat to minimize the spending of the energy. And we also try to do a lot of recycle to make sure that the water is being kept. And some of the view that you will see is basically the rendering of the principle that we apply, how the nature is intertwining with our build system. And it's already started taking shape, and it's relatively good, kind of close to what we actually imagine. And if you can see also the undulation is still there. A lot of the greenery is happening in and out of the building, and the building itself try to orientate towards the most energy efficient, and also to the wind corridor that is also allowing that passive design to take place. So the building itself doesn't require a lot of the higher energy that we typically happen in the most urban areas. So you see some of that already, rendering is already start to take place. Of course, the greenery is a bit harder to take because the greenery takes a lot of time to grow. But at least some of the existing trees are there to that we keep and we protect. So we don't need to. We create the condition of the next layer of forest to come in the next coming years. So some of that, of course, create also some kind of different aesthetics of our. This is our alun-alun, yeah. This is our sort of like public space, and it's bringing the nature closer to the public space. So people who's coming to the capital city now can enjoy also being close to the nature, and the interconnectivity between the building is also start to be taking place. If take notes of the riparian that's coming in between of these two buildings, where the water will be filling up, and then also the WSUD and the green nature-based solution is already start to coming in between of the building. Okay, I think with that, I finished my presentation. Back to you, Sean.
It's very interesting. Do you understand that larger cities need to be organically grown and they need to develop on their own behalf over time? You can't master plan the entire thing, but how do you think that the city is going to grow organically and more naturally with residents arriving and according to residents' needs?
True. Yeah, I think in most of cases of our city, we cannot really implement this model. Yeah, this model works with the more top-down approach with a lot of the government funding. So I think what will be interesting is to see this as a most ideal cases to put it into perspective, but then how to put it within certain limits or certain parameters, how the natural and organic way to grow this naturally. Because one thing that we can do, for example, identifying all our natural system before we overlaying it with the full-on built development. But then the economic of it needs to be taken care of, because equally the nature and the building require certain level of maintenance, certain level of financing and operation. That in our capital city, because it has such a big sort of budget coming in, I think that's we speed it up. Also, you see that whatever that you see is within 3 to 4 years. That's not going to happen in a normal case. So it will take some time. It will take certain resources. And what's important thing is the understanding that we really need to bring in nature into our urban system and consciously apply it and religiously think about it before we just opening it up for the economic activity.
Yeah. How many people are going to move there? Public servants,
Yeah, the
government
first
servants,
batch of 300 staff, residents already starting to operate there with the office of the Autorita of IKN is already moving in. But the next batch, we hope that the first government official coming in is in probably about 10,000, if not 7,000 first residents. But then, of course, it's gradually will have to move in. But then again, this is based on the prediction. But then the decision has to come from our central government, Mr. President Prabowo, whether he will move in 2028 as what he narrated and he mentioned in a lot of the media channel.
Yeah, well, I don't think this has ever been done before. It's quite impressive.
Yeah, I think that's a
Sofian.
learning curve.
Very
Yeah.
interesting project. We have this little menti.com meter on the side here. I'm not sure if anyone's been posting any questions. It hasn't looked like anything has come in through. I'm going to move on to Neil Thomas, who's our next speaker. Neil Thomas is the director and founder of Atelier One. He is a Sustainable Building Award winner of the year 2021, the Architectural Design of the Year Master Prize of 2021, and the Supreme Award for Structural Engineering Excellence in 2022. He's a visiting professor to Yale and MIT. Neil Thomas is also working in Bali. Some of you might know him because of the Gardens by the Bay or the Durian. He is a structural engineer. The floor is yours, sir. We can see your presentation, but we cannot hear anything. Presentation is here. Got you.
Yeah, hi. Sorry about that. Yeah, thank you, Nina, very much for organizing Maitri Mantra altogether for this second one that I've attended. And can I just say one thing? Dr. Ken Yeang, who I haven't seen for years, who I love his work, and it's such a pleasure to see him. And I'm sorry he couldn't carry on talking. I was looking forward to hearing some more. But anyway,
I'm also very sorry about that. I think everyone really looks up to
lots
Dr.
of other
Ken.
very interesting things, but the title, Meeting the Needs of the Present Without Compromising the Ability of Future Generations to Meet Their Own Needs. It's a very long title. And it is about what we're doing with climate change. And what does climate change look like, right? We know a year ago, a big part of Los Angeles burned down just from wildfires. Where I live in the UK, I've never heard of it before, but a year and a half ago in the summer, we had the same kind of thing, wildfires, just natural wildfires, which burned out a whole load of property. And we know that the temperature is rising, and the temperature rising, we're above the 1.5 degrees centigrade limit that had been set, or we're about to get to that limit. Nothing will happen. It's not catastrophic. What happens? Things just get worse. But that 1.5 degrees increase means that the air is hotter, and what happens then is more water evaporates into the air. So when it rains, it really rains, right? This is Dubai Airport. This is a 21st century international airport, flooded. This is Spain. This is Valencia. This is after enormous floods, after huge storms. And this is the result of that. So we can all see where this is going. And when you get the extremes of heat, there are the extremes of low temperatures. This is Heathrow Airport. So what are we going to do about it? So one of the things I've heard a lot, greening our cities. This I think is a fantastic thing, and we should do more and more and more. And we all know, I tell you one, the engineering practice I run with my partner, Aaron Chadwick, we were the engineers for Gardens by the Bay. And this is all part of the greening the city process. They got this plan for this garden, 50-hectare garden, 40 years ago, and finally built it. And it appeared in a Blue Planet documentary with David Attenborough, and you can listen to him talk about it.
One city where that idea is being applied on a major
scale. Can you hear that, Nino?
Singapore. Yeah. 2 million million trees have been planted here in the last 45 years. This city is now richer in species than any other in the world. But perhaps the most spectacular example of city greening is this grove of super trees. Create the space and the animals will come. Is this a vision of our cities of the future?
So when it won the World Building of the Year, World Architecture Festival in 2012, it was an architectural award, but the jury chairman said that he was awarding it to the structural engineer, environmental engineer, landscape architect, and architect. He said it was the most collaborative project he had ever seen. This is a very important point I want to make about collaboration. We at Telio One, we're structural engineers, but we're 8 billion people. It's been mentioned a few times on the planet. Nina, you said, we need to think about food. Food is a major issue on this planet, and it's going to get worse. John Hardy, I'm going to introduce you to, and I'll talk about bamboo in a bit. He said, if you own land and you don't grow food, you're not part of the future. So we're working on this project, which is called the Vegetable Production Revolution, with a Dutch company to build an entirely new type of greenhouse. Greenhouses currently only really work in the temperate zones because they rely upon the external environment. These are totally closed, sealed off, and so they collect everything, all the energy. They don't waste carbon dioxide because when you're growing industrial agriculture like this, you're pumping in CO2 all the time. So this means now you can place these on 6/10 of the landmass of the planet rather than the 10% that is the temperate zones. We need to think about natural materials. I mean, we've been building for concrete for way too long. Concrete is the main material in the construction industry in most parts of the world, but it makes a lot of carbon. The construction industry produces 40% of the greenhouse gases on the planet. Natural materials sequester carbon. This is a building in France, in Paris, called Arboretum, which is the biggest single timber construction in Europe. The French government have just announced that by 2030, in 5 years' time, 50% of all their public buildings will be built from buildings of natural materials. And I use that phrase carefully. This is Canada, where the Canadian government they support and subsidize the use of buildings with natural materials up to the tune of 30%. We've developed a whole series of buildings as a Telio One. This is a project we did with Cambridge University to develop a 160-meter tower. You need to think about materials the way you use them in a different way, because materials have different properties. And so a timber structure looks very different to a structure of concrete or steel. And bamboo. I mean, 10, 12 years ago, I mentioned a moment ago, John Hardy. I went to visit him in Bali and was introduced to bamboo, and we have been working with bamboo ever since. And this is the first thing, one of the first things I ever saw. A 6-story house designed by his daughter, Elora, in her architectural practice. And we've gone on to work on a whole series of projects with them, and it's extended way beyond that in bamboo. This is part of his hotel, and that tree house there we engineered, and it's just been awarded by Time Magazine the 4th best place to visit, regenerative place on the planet, 4th best. And you can do the amazing things with bamboo. This is not a project we worked on, but one I think is quite beautiful, amazing. Nina mentioned we won the Sustainability Award for the new green school that John started himself, John Hardy, the new green school gymnasium here, which is entirely made from bamboo. And then it went on to win the Supreme Award. And the jury said the project demonstrates the exciting possibility of bamboo as a potential mainstream building material. Architects and engineers alike should be inspired. It's been shortlisted 2 weeks ago. It was announced for the Aga Khan Award, which is very exciting. I mean, it was so sustainable. We were able to use existing foundations, and then the rest of the whole building is entirely from bamboo. So what other things are we doing with bamboo? We're working on a humanitarian housing system with a group. We're part owners in a company that built 21 houses in Nicaragua. You can see behind there, bamboo frame. And this is the new version of it, which we're currently meeting with Hilti on Monday about a contract to build a whole series of them in Mexico. This particular one's developed for Mexico. But what we've done, all we've learned since we did the first versions of it in Nicaragua, we've been able to develop this, a kind of modular, you can see here, these panels, they're all modular.
Looks beautiful.
We've applied a whole series of environmental ideas to this. So one of them, for instance, the ones in Nicaragua, the roofs were painted green, but a white painted roof will absorb less heat and light. And by putting a ventilation ridge down the middle painted black, we pull in thermosiphon to pull air through. Didn't cost anything but the cost of the paint. And also there's a wonderful book, the bottom there, training your vegetation and walls to push air around in a particular way. A German, Jörg Lipsmeier, did a book called Tropenbau, or Building in the Tropics. Amazing book about working there.
Neil, can you just go back? Sorry,
Yes.
the ventilation ridge, which is at the top there, you have a ventilation ridge painted black, and that is absorbing the heat from the sun, creating
a thermosiphon.
A thermosiphon. So the heat from that small black collector is actually drawing in air from below.
Yes.
Incredible. And this is very low cost, right? I mean, anyone could apply this. Any villa, any house, it's just remarkable. And the well-being that this increases, right? I mean, the actual just enjoyment of being in that space with that airflow. And it's so simple. Why is no one doing this? It just blows my mind.
We're talking to the United Nations Environment Programme about building one in COP in November, but I don't know, a conversation's ongoing. But I think these are things that we can, we're looking at projects in Mexico, Nigeria, Brazil at the moment. So, I think it's just, and what this came from was the idea, stop telling from the north, the global north, telling people in the global south how to build.
Yeah,
so
that's wrong.
All developed. We have people in Mexico and people from Nicaragua, and we've been working with them together within this group.
Yep.
But the real thing where bamboo really takes off in the Western construction industry, industrial construction industry, is engineered bamboo. And this is a company in China called Grizu, basically you take bamboo, break it down and form laminated sections. And they're building structures like the one I showed, bridges. And this is the key. This is the wonderful thing. This is designed and built by a man called Professor Zhao, who I met last week in Brisbane in Australia. And he has built a 7-story building this is purely and only engineered bamboo. So
beautiful.
Bamboo is across the tropics. It covers 1/3 of the planet's surface. And it is 1,500 species of it, and it is everywhere. And we will be able it sequesters carbon, so it grows very quickly, grows to full size in a year and matures in 3 or 4 years, comparing that to timber, which is 30, 40, 50 years.
Yeah.
We are currently discussing with our government in the UK the use of it here, and I was out in Australia promoting the idea of the government there using it in Australia. And where bamboo's gone, it's gone as far as this. This is a wind turbine. Bamboo fibers are lighter than carbon fiber, and so wind turbines are now being built from it because it's lighter, and therefore it can build bigger and longer wind turbines, which means it's more efficient. And ultimately, this is a thing I saw, this is a bamboo proposal for a colony on Mars, but built in bamboo fabric. Because we take the bamboo fibers out of it, and you can knit it and weave it into surfaces. And if you're traveling to Mars to build a base, you don't want to be carrying all sorts of, heavy construction elements. So you carry this woven net and you take the earth from the ground and create this enclosure. That's the kind of possibility. But I mean, bamboo, I think, is a way forward, because the natural materials themselves, but engineered bamboo. And I mentioned the point of collaboration. Meeting the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs was the title of the talk. This is the United Nations explanation of the phrase sustainable development, but it also says the survival of our societies and our shared planet depends on a more sustainable world. And I mentioned collaboration. I hear more and more all the time people saying, well, what can I do? It's just me. I am just one person. But you'll find 8 billion people are saying that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Neil. Thanks. Thank you, everyone else, for today's presentations. I think it's remarkable to have such incredible people come together. I'm so happy that you all took the time to speak and that you all were here to present. I'm very, very grateful to all of you. To all listeners, we absolutely all can do more and must do more. We need to find ways to collaborate more and to strive for more and higher. I think it's absolutely important that we find a way around concrete and too much overconsumption of cement and steel. I know that it's subsidized by the government. I know that it's old industries that were brought by the Dutch into Indonesia. I know that they are politically affiliated and very hard to break apart, but natural and bio-based materials should get a chance in today's marketplace, and we must work together to achieve that. We have bamboo, we have so many resources that we can use in building that are natural, that are nature-based. We have clay, and we have different limes and other beautiful and very capable materials that need a chance. And concrete and steel needs to take a back seat. It's honestly at its time, and it's not regenerative moving into the future. I think we can close at that, everyone. Does anyone want to add anything? It's now 4:15. We will share the presentations with all the registered speakers. There's a recording of today's series, so everything has been recorded. We will create some additional content. We will share the presentations and bios and contacts and information of all speakers with everyone. Please feel free to reach out. And that's all from me, guys. I think that's a wrap. I think.
Thank you, Nino. Thank you very much. Thank you.
So great, everyone. Thank you so much for today.
Great to listen to. Thank you.
Thank you.
Really,
Thank you all.
really great presentations.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for inspiring us.
Thank you, Dr. Ken.
Bye.
Dr. Ken, yes. I hope we see you soon in Malaysia. We'll come and visit you. We're coming on a trip soon.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you all. Bye.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for being here today.